Okay, folks. After thinking about my old buddy, George Herbert Walker Bush, and the class he always showed, I figured I could probably redo my last video about the credit bureaus. Be it may, some people think that cursing shows a genuine quality and somebody comes across as real and they care about the issue. I realize that is true. However, others are put off a little bit from cursing. Even if something is so aggravating it causes one to curse, others might think it indignifies a person to talk that way. It makes them seem ignorant. And we all know I'm not ignorant. I have been advising presidents for 18 years, so I am ready to run for president. But here we go. Now, there are a lot of problems with the credit bureau system. And as someone who loves America, I find these problems somewhat a threat to our financial freedom. Not only mine, but yours too. It's like we have to cater to someone's ideas about how we should spend our money. Even though some of us are entrepreneurs and we do things a little bit differently outside the box, we are still affected by the decisions of others. And that's unfortunate. We're supposed to live in a free country. We should be able to have a business plan or a knowledge of finances and do what the hell we want. But obviously we can't. And that needs to change. Okay. Now, the first example for this is, even if you've owned like 30 cars in the past, if you go buy a car and get a new car loan and pay it off, say, in 3 months, they will lower your score. I know. It seems like it should be just the opposite. I mean, if you got a 60, 72-month loan and you sell it, pay it off in 3 months, you would think your score would go higher. That's what I thought. But they do just the opposite. They say there's no payment history. Okay, that needs to change. If we've owned several cars before and we decide to sell a car off early, they should raise our score for paying it off early, not lower it. So that needs to change. The second thing that needs to change is credit inquiries. Now, as a savvy shopper and a smart American like you yourselves are, we like to get the best terms possible on our loans, so we shop around. We also shop around dealerships. Now, sometimes they run our credit when we don't tell them to. Sometimes we're just seeing what the numbers would be if we were to purchase. And they'll go ahead and run our credit. And a lot of times we don't even realize they're doing that. Okay? So, as Americans with our own money in a free country, capitalist society, we should be able to shop the banks. Get the best terms possible, best interest rate, for the least number of months, to pay it off as soon as we can for the least amount of money. But no, if we run our credit too many times in a year, they lower our score. Now, I trade all the time. I'm not married. I get bored. It's kind of like brings an excitement to my life I don't have anybody to come home to. Nobody's cooking for me. So I tend to have a hobby of getting in and out of cars. And I negotiate the price down to put me in a position where I can do that. So that when I sell it, I'm not in a bad position and I'm not rolling over a lot of money. And then I might do it again too. And that's my prerogative as a free American. There should not be somebody at a credit bureau saying we have to keep a loan X number of months. There should not be somebody at a credit bureau saying we can't run our credit more than 5 times a year. Okay, so if I got 32 inquiries on my credit report in a year, that's nothing. If you go to one dealership and they run it, and then 5 or 6 banks run it, and then you go to 4 different dealerships trying to get the best deal, you could see the math. 4 times 7, that's 28. 32 times in a year is nothing. And it's our money. We should be able to spend it how we want. There shouldn't be anybody at some credit bureau saying We cannot run our credit 32 times a year. And when we do so, they should not lower our score. That's example number 2. Example number 3. Let's see. There was a number of months on payment history, credit inquiries. The third one is consolidation loans. Now, as most Americans, you kind of learn as you live. You live and you learn and live. I had 2 major surgeries. Keep in mind, there's a lot of. I don't find it stressful. I love what I do, but the human body reacts to it differently. And sometimes we're in situations and areas where things happen to us that we don't want to happen. So anyhow, after 2 major surgeries, I was stuck with a lot of medical bills. The first one, I didn't have my good health insurance to start with. The second one, I still had a huge bill afterwards. So it was emergency surgery. They ripped my ribs apart, went in through the side, went behind my aorta, all this other crap. Took out part of my lung. You can imagine how expensive that was. And like anybody else, I don't want my bills sitting out there forever. I want them to be paid off, right? Wouldn't you, as a conservative American or a financially responsible person, rather have your bills paid off than sitting out there not paid? Exactly. So I paid them off. Now, for your information, if you got medical bills sitting out there, don't pay them off with your credit cards, because then guess what? They say you utilize too much credit, too much of the credit you have. Then that's some BS. If a bank wants to give you credit, don't you think you should be able to utilize it how you want? I do. Okay, so the credit bureaus say, now you're utilizing too much credit, so they lower your score for that. So guess what? You can't go get a consolidation loan. So you'll end up paying bukus of extra money a month, just paying off some bills that you could consolidate and put some bulk payments on and pay off a lot faster. Wouldn't it make sense to have a lower interest rate on a large amount of money? The bank's going to be making money on it. It's a larger amount of money. You should have lower interest on it. And you should be able to get a low interest rate loan so you're paying out less per month, consolidating some medical bills that you'd previously paid off on credit cards. You should be able to, once you pay your medical bills off, you should be able to take your credit cards and put them in a consolidation loan without the crap, the other stupid options they give you, which are really none other than walking away and putting everything lower, and then somebody else charges you a couple, $2,000-$3,000 to get almost where you were to begin with, but act like you don't know how to pay your own bills and set up these little payments. Then they charge you money for an escrow account. They charge you money to make escrow deposits. They give you a charge for making your payments for you. It's all BS. We're financially responsible. We don't need that. Banks, credit bureaus, United States government, we need low interest consolidation loans because we're going to pay them off. That's why we paid them off to begin with. We'll pay our consolidation loan off too. So, buyer beware. If you pay your medical bills off with your credit cards, the credit bureaus are going to give it to you. They're going to stick an axe in your back, and you'll never be able to look back. Okay, so we need these changes. I tried to get people to pass bills, a consumer protection bill, and guess what? I cited all these same reasons. We should be able to run our credit as much as we want. We should be able to consolidate medical bills and even credit cards if we've paid medical bills off with them. Think of all the cancer patients out there, breast cancer, major diseases, major surgeries. These people need options. You can't just walk away from them and act like you can't give them a loan. These are responsible people, and they need responsible means. So we should be able to run our credit as much as we want. We should be able to consolidate medical bills. We should be able to consolidate credit cards we paid medical bills off. And we shouldn't have to keep a long payment history on an automobile loan. We should be able to sell that loan whenever we want and get another one. Those are 3 major factors Now, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not going to keep a car 5 years. And I'm going to have multiple inquiries because I'm smart enough to know how I want my loan structured. Now, it's not my fault dealers run their credit when I don't ask them to. It's not my fault. If you look at multiple banks, they all run your credit. You should be able to run your credit one time and let everybody see it. Okay? If you're going to charge us for inquiries, then you should allow us to run our credit one time at a dealership or at a bank and share that same report with whomever we want. Okay, now, as you can see, I'm quite aggravated from these situations. I tried to get a bill passed in Congress. I called it the Consumer Protection Bill. Somebody had kind of the right idea, but they did it a different approach. Instead of doing something to protect the consumer, which one would be more of a Democrat idea, they passed it where the banks could loan more with less on the books. The banks are regulated. This is America. Even the banks are regulated. Shoot, I remember when the Italians made the first Bank of America. I'm sure there was less regulation back then. But now the banks and small banks they used to have 3 times the reserves on hand. Well, they passed something where the smaller banks could go ahead and lend without having to have more reserves on hand. And that's great. I'm happy for the banks. I'm glad I helped to get that accomplished for you. But what about me? Did you turn around and say, Brian, here's a 4% consolidation loan. Here's a 5.9% car loan. Here's a good consolidation loan. Brian, you got good credit with us. You've never defaulted on a car loan. We don't care if you sell your car in 3 months. We know you negotiate the price right to begin with. And we know you know what you're doing. So, Brian, we'll raise your score for that. Did you say that? Did you shake my hand like the old days? I used to walk in the bank, shake a hand, know I had a job, know I had a deal. Just because of the simple fact I could negotiate the interest rate and everything else without the bureaus having so much control. Example, they got so much control when they lowered my score for credit inquiries. I lost a revolving credit line at my what do you call it? Nonprofit credit union. It's a major credit union in Kentucky. It's the biggest credit union in Kentucky. I had a $7,000 revolving credit line, $7,400, and I lost the credit line because the credit bureaus lowered my score. Now, I was a month and a half ahead on all those payments. I always paid off. I paid early. I stayed ahead of the game. But they went and closed it just because the credit bureaus lowered my score. I was over there looking at a car loan. They ran my credit. Somebody up the food chain, whoever it was, acted irresponsibly and closed my credit line. Now, did I agree for them to close my credit line once I opened it? No. And what was I doing? I was negotiating my high interest rate credit cards into the low interest debt. So I'd pay like $1,000, $1,500 into my credit line, which is great because I'd be drawing out my own money basically. I'd deposit that in the credit line back, and then I'd draw it back out at a lower percentage rate to pay off the higher rate cards. See where I'm coming from? That was my game plan. I couldn't get a consolidation loan, so I'd pay $1,000 or $1,500 into the revolving low interest credit line, draw it back out, pay off a credit card, pay down a credit card, pay down a medical bill. All was well in La La Land. I was a month ahead of the game. And then some moron, yep, that's you, one of you somewhere, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax, and these little no-name companies, your way of doing business that affects us consumers lowered my score, knocked me out of a credit line that was allowing me to consolidate high interest rate cards at a lower interest rate. And I very much do not appreciate that. because that ties my hands at all these other projects I got going on in life. I got more goals and aspirations than I got years left on earth. That's called the Holy Spirit. I don't need some suit behind a desk telling me how to spend my money in a free country. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. I hope you found this video kinder and gentler than the last one. I miss you. I miss you, Mr. Bush and Barbara. Love you guys. Love your whole family. Kisses to the grandkids. George, someday I'll hug you. Anyway, we won't go there. I treat everybody like family. So I hope you liked this video, and please support me when I run for president. I'm a straight shooter, just like W was. I'm a straight shooter. I ain't gonna put icing on the cake. I'm not gonna lie to you. You're always gonna know where I stand. So God bless you. God bless America. And let's change the credit bureaus. Stand up, America. We can do this together. God bless you.